So welcome everyone. We are very excited to have you joining us today for this moderated discussion on people-centered approaches to programs and services. My name is Laura Liz Morales Silva. I'm the manager of capacity building at FPWA, and I'm joined today by representatives of 4 amazing FPWA member agencies. So before we get started, just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. We do encourage participation. I know it's difficult in a webinar format, but we do have the Q&A and the chat function available for questions and comments. You should see those at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see them immediately, there should be a little thing that says more with 3 dots on it, and it might be there. So please, we do want you to chat, use the chat, use the Q&A, and we'll try to get to everyone's answers and comments during the session. If not, we always try to submit questions to the panelists and then send out a follow-up email with the answers. The session is being recorded, and it will be posted to the FPWA website, so you'll be able to access that recording later on. You'll also receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording and a short post-session survey. Please, we do ask you that you take those 2 minutes to complete the survey. That's what helps us think about our programming and make it better time and time again. And again, please take care. This session may include information and discussions about trauma. So we just want you to take care of yourselves. And before we get into the content for today's session, we'd like to give a brief overview of FPWA as an organization and highlight the ways in which we support the nonprofit sector. FPWA is an anti-poverty policy and advocacy organization with a membership network of over 170 human services and faith-based organizations. We promote the social and economic well-being of individuals and communities by advocating for just public policies and strengthening human service organizations. And as the programs team, our primary focus is on that last part, on strengthening the human services sector. We do that by supporting nonprofit and faith-based organizations in building their capacity to use a trauma-informed and people-centered approach to service delivery, organizational effectiveness, and civic engagement. So today we are so lucky to welcome Sarah Crawford Banda, Director of NMIC's Domestic Violence Project, Cynthia K. Mendez, Coordinating DV Attorney at NMIC, Tida Virak, Director of Social Services and Advocacy at Mekong NYC, Marie Dunn, Program Director for the Family Success Initiative at Graham, and William Weisberg, Executive Director of Forestdale, Inc. So we will be starting today with Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation and their domestic violence program. So Sarah and Cynthia, over to you.
Well, good morning, everyone. We are so delighted to be here and to talk about something that we feel really passionate about. My name is Sarah Crawford Banda, and as Lourdes introduced me, I'm the director of the Domestic Violence Project, and I go by she, her.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cynthia K. Mendez. I'm the Coordinating Domestic Violence Attorney, and I also go with she and her.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this opportunity. We're just going to pull up our PowerPoint presentation, and Lourdes, maybe you could just check in to make sure everyone sees what we see. Okay, great, wonderful. So NMIC was founded in 1979, and the Domestic Violence Project is a part of NMIC, and it uses NMIC uses a settlement house model. And there's our fearless luchadora, Maria Lizardo. She's our executive director. We are located in Washington Heights, also known as Quisqueya Heights, or now officially the Little Dominican Republic on Google Maps. But we also acknowledge that we are on the lands of the Lenape people, stewards, and this is also known as the mingling of the rivers. So we are up at the top of Manhattan. We also have an office in the Bronx, just across the river there. Just go back really quickly. So some of our services are that we have a long history doing eviction prevention work and in our housing litigation unit. We have help with benefits, tax prep, health insurance access. We have a wellness program, an education and career department focusing on adult education. And then we have a community organizing department, weatherization department. So it is fairly holistic. And we're going to be talking specifically about our work, which is interdisciplinary in the Domestic Violence Project. So some of our values are that we are client-driven and survivor-centered, and we feel very strongly that this is really what grounds our work. That is trauma-informed, non-judgmental, free, and low barrier. That it's culturally and linguistically affirming. We like to use culturally relevant sayings, dichos, or concepts, or just familiarity to inform our work. So two of those that we refer to as La Cultura Cura and Saber es Poder. We try to use a lens of being flexible whenever we can. Obviously, we have restrictions as a non-for-profit, but we do try to accommodate and be flexible and responsive to our clients' needs. We aspire to be holistic and intersectional in how we do our work and work together, especially, and we are committed to doing this work long-term, which can be challenging for nonprofits, but we recognize that healing isn't linear, and a lot of systematic oppression has been doing what it does for long term. So we have to be committed to responding that way. We are also committed to having the value that our work be contextualized to our clients and the people we work with. And that means any number of things and what's relevant to them. And that it be strength-based and resiliency-focused, which I think a lot of places recognize as essential to doing this work. So just quickly to give you a little sense, we're tiny but mighty. We're a small staff, but in 2021, we served 524 survivors. They are predominantly immigrants from Latin America and predominantly people who identify as women, and also undocumented. We try to really use our resources here at NMIC and refer internally so that it can be sort of all the services that we can offer under one roof. And I'll talk about a little bit more about the types of services we have in virtual, in-person, individual, and group focused. So we offer individual trauma-informed counseling, advocacy-based counseling, crisis intervention. Since we are working with people who have been harmed by intimate partners, we are obviously going to center on their own safety and provide them with resources and information that can help them determine what is the best option for them. We also offer a drop-in support group. Our family law work is also instrumental to helping clients access justice. We have a fairly large immigration unit that also provides assistance to survivors. All of our programming is non-residential, but we do, when clients are interested, consider options and help them and advocate for shelter placement or other types of relocation. We focus heavily on self-sufficiency, as financial abuse is really a huge component often to what survivors experience. And then we do a lot of skills building workshops and healing workshops as part of some of our group work that really change in terms of content, depending on clients' interests and input. And then we also do, in our spare time, primary prevention and awareness raising and outreach, because we can't do this work sort of in a vacuum, and recognizing the need for multi-level advocacy and coalition building. And we do all of this in collaboration, which really starts with the survivor and then extends from there. So we use our internal resources, we use external resources, we try to develop new partnerships, and then we try to keep humble and recognize that we don't know all of the answers, and we will look to discover new resources as they may be needed. So quickly, I think most of everyone is really familiar with what trauma is. The SAMHSA definition results from, quote, an event series of events or set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening, and that has lasting adverse effects on the individual's functioning and mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. So this is never, it's never, you know, we should always reinforce our understanding of a trauma perspective and how it impacts people. So trauma informed, these also help frame our work around safety, trustworthiness and transparency, voice and choice, which we're really focusing on today, collaboration and mutuality, empowerment, and then cultural, historical, and gender contexts and connections. So one of the sort of dichos or sayings that we use, mottos in our program, is salir adelante, which really helps us ground our work, and it actually is something when we first contact clients or they contact us, you know, we use as part of our language and introducing them to what is available. So we try to integrate these in different ways. So on your right, you see this was a flyer for a workshop we did with one of our staff and her mom, and she experienced domestic violence as a young child, and her mom came and spoke. So we really think there's power in people's stories as a healing narrative. So mal tiempo, buena cara is a saying in Spanish that addresses the power of hope and strength. So I think we can go to the next slide. The other framework we really are really committed to is La Cultura Cura, which is a transformative health and healing philosophy that recognizes that within an individual's families and communities, authentic cultural values, traditions, and indigenous practices exist the pathway to healthy development, restoration, and lifelong well-being. And this is the amazing work of the National Compadres Network, and we have we use some of their work to inform ours. And I'm gonna turn that over to Cynthia, who's gonna go over in more detail pride, which she's gonna explain more.
Yeah, so these are the themes that we go by, like pride, as Sarah just mentioned. P for pride stands for purpose or destino. And it's a premise of the individual, family, community dignity that acknowledges that within the ancestral wisdom of a people are the teachings and medicine necessary for growth and healing. It is understood that the teachings and healing elements inevitably come from the people themselves. Therefore, in order for true healing or rebalancing to be sustained, the initial incentive may come from an outside person, but the ongoing motivation for an individual, family, or community growth and rebalancing must come from within the circle of those who desire or need growth or change. The next one is R, right, for responsibility, which is based on respeto or respect, right? And this is when individuals must have a vision that reflects the potential of their true self in reference to their family and community. If a person only has a negative view of their self and their culture, then they have no avenue for growth, development, or a healthy response, ability to respond to life's struggles. I for interdependence, based on the individual, family, community trust, or confianza in Spanish. This is the strengthening of community and the families within it, directly enhances the development and healing of its individuals. As individuals heal and grow, they reintegrate with the positive vision of the community. Families and communities and the individuals within them must develop interdependently. If one is missing, then disharmonious growth occurs, which leads to false hope and development. So it is essential to know the difference between codependence, individualism, and indigenous cultural interdependence. Through the redeveloped interconnectedness, cycles of generational destruction and pain are interrupted, and a commitment to a generational healing and development is initiated, individual by individual, family by family, and community by community. This is true here in our agency, that we see that we need, this is not only, the healing is not only personal, but is within the community.
And always involves food. Very important part.
The D stands for development, circular learning based on love, cariño, for life. A love for life is the basis of a circular learning process. As times change, people must learn new ways to live in the world as individuals, families, and communities. There must be pride in one's ethnicity, respect for all roots, and a process for balancing differences. The new ways must be both life-preserving and life-enhancing. In addition, organizations, institutions, and systems, and dominant societal communities must also learn to live in new ways, being willing to change their philosophy, policies, and procedures based on the needs of the evolving community.
Yeah, and I just want to do a shout out. This is an organization called Mano a Mano, and they came to do a workshop involving San Jarocho music from Mexico, and it was a family-based workshop. It's really nice.
The last one is enthusiasm, living life with a sense of hope, spirituality, or esperanza. Living life with a sense of spirit allows an individual, family, community to approach life with an element of enthusiasm, con ganas, instilling or reinstilling the sense of hope of an individual, family, community allows one to deal with the difficult and sometimes overwhelming day-to-day pressures with a sense of a greater spirit. As part of this development, it is important for our community to engage in an ongoing and consistent community affirming celebrations and events to acknowledge the emerging leaders and the positive efforts that are taking place in order that they may take root and grow.
Yeah, this is a picture of a recent group counseling and a meditation that we did that involved hearkening our ancestors for strength and transitions. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some more like practical examples of how we center voice and choice and collaboration. So we have been pretty clear with funders and even with upper management sometimes that it's really important that we do not require or we're flexible and accommodate clients who may not want to share specific information. So we figure we will get it eventually, and it's not something that is mandated upon intake. So we've had clients who didn't want to give their names for a couple of weeks, but we still met with them, and slowly over time they built trust and were able to provide us with that information. We are also believe that survivors determine what success is, and I wanted to just mention the Full Frame initiative. They did a really great report on what survivor determined success is. And I'm just going to quote from their report. Survivors' examples of success centered on connection with family members, friends, and other informal networks, on achieving something that created value and worth for themselves and others, and on moments characterized by calm, predictability, and normalcy. So it may not be that order of protection or getting into shelter, something static in time. It was much more related to human connection and self-worth in terms of what they determined as success. So self-determination is really paramount, and we try not to use the word safe. We'd like to use safer. So recognizing that that it is a process, and that survivors know best. So we try to build in feedback loops with the people who are participating in our program by using surveys, WhatsApp polls, focus groups. We try whenever we can to talk about our program using our own survivors' voices, and so they have helped us do testimonies in different venues on social media or at advocacy events, and we consider them experts in their survivorship. We try to anticipate barriers, everything from how to engage with us, obviously around safety issues, but maybe around technology, now during the pandemic especially, or educational levels. So we try to use a lot of visual materials and write text in nothing more advanced than a 5th grade level. We try to use familiar language that goes back to the dichos or modismos or sayings, and we also ask them to help design our program and choose what types of things they want to learn, be exposed to, and what they think is helpful. We try to also have lots of access points, so they could DM us on Facebook or Instagram, use WhatsApp, which is a very familiar platform for many outside of the United States. Email, whatever they think is the most effective and safest for them. These are some examples of some materials that we did some focus groups on, so that they could include what they think would land for people who are experiencing intimate partner violence and want to reach help. So thinking back, what were some of the barriers for them? We wanted to get their feedback. One of the two top images is a specific trifold pamphlet that explains the U visa process. And that is a very intricate and frustrating immigration-based petition that is open to survivors. Okay, I'm gonna go really quickly because I think I'm running out of time. These are more examples of some of our social media, how we amplify people's voices. So this is, I'm just going to go quickly through some of our community building and how clients can also give back to, there's like a reciprocity, and they feel connected by supporting other survivors along their journey. This is examples of some of the WhatsApp messaging that we send out to a network of about 350 survivors on a daily basis. These are some murals that we worked on with a survivor. She did some photojournalists work with, you can go on.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And just really quickly, as we mentioned before, we try to do outreach not only now through social media as well. This is just a picture of my paralegal and I doing in Spanish an Instagram live regarding justice and the rights of 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 women who or men, right, that want to leave their partners and do not know exactly what are their rights at the moment. And just really quickly, I want to just give you a view of how we center the survivor when they come in. We provide them with holistic legal assistance. As you know, they may not recognize what kind of assistance they need, and that's what we're here for, to figure out, to help them out. So it's not only necessarily with a family law consultation, but I get to see that they may need help with housing. They may not know that they have there exist VAWA protections for them, or they may need assistance with immigration, and they don't know how to go that. They so often don't even know that there are immigration relief for survivors of domestic violence. And of course, other things that go in that Sarah mentioned with financial abuse, we basically center it all with the survivor. And this is just like a view of how we do that.
Thank you so much, Cynthia
I'm
and
sorry.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. We do need to move on, but just a reminder to participants, we will be sharing out these resources and this amazing information,
Yes.
flyers as well, so you can share with your community on how to access the Domestic Violence Project. So thank you so much. We will be moving on now to Marie Dunn. Oh, sorry, what was it? Marie or Theta? What did I say? Theta, sorry. We're moving on to Mekong NYC. And at the end, please, again, use the chat and use the Q&A if you have questions for Cynthia and Sarah. If you need more information, please go ahead and use those resources. So Theta from Mekong NYC, over to you.
Thank you, Aurelis. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me today to share about the work that Mekong NYC does, and also to share the space with all the amazing speakers here. My name is Tida Birak. I am the Director of Social Service and Advocacy at Mekong NYC. I'm also go with she, her. So Mekong NYC is a social justice organization that brings dignity and value to the life of the Southeast Asians in the Bronx throughout New York City. We're serving predominantly Cambodian and Vietnamese refugees and immigrants communities. We do this through community organizing and movement building, centering healing through arts and culture, and creating a strong safety net program rooted in the community power. We're committed to uplifting the voices of those in our community who are most impacted and marginalized in order to build a multiracial social justice movement. The work that we're doing, we value building collective power for our Southeast Asian community. We're preserving Southeast Asian history, culture, and intergenerational relationships. We also build leadership of our youth, women, LGBTQ+ elder community members. We also take pride and respect for each other and also our work. We hold each other accountable, and also our community members, we committing in building solidarity with other communities of color and fight for shared liberations. And the most important thing is the law for our people, right? Mekong areas of work consist of campaign and community organizing, arts and culture, and direct services. So under campaign and community organizing, we do health justice work that ground all the work that we're doing. And it's very intersectional and connected to different areas of work as well. So health justice work is the gear of our hearts because of the history that we are coming from, the war and genocide, intergenerational trauma that impact the community. But if we talk about the coalitions that we're part of in health justice work, there are many levels, city and state coalition partners that have given us spaces to fight and also uplift our Southeast Asian voices and living experience. On the local level, it is a heart-to-heart work that we do on the ground. We do healing circle through women's circles, holding space to our own culture, traditions, and practices. We also collaborate with the temple and churches that hold spaces for our community members to cope with their traumas, have safe spaces, and be close to their own culture. So beside health justice work, we're also doing campaign work on the local and national level as well. So far, we are working on saving the Family Health Center at Montefiore, ending deportation, and the nail salon campaign. Mekong is part of the Clemency Coalition to help support and implement the Clemency Justice Act, along with many other organizations, right? We are also part of the Southeast Asian Freedom Network, the national movement that fights to end deportations and keep families together. So we came to the conclusions of why fighting to end deportation work, right? It is important because the US continues to cause harm to our people, and this is very inhumane. The Cambodian deportation crisis, as well as the largest Southeast Asian deportation crisis, are the direct result of the US military intervention in the Southeast Asia, and then the failed Refugee Resettlement Act program. Our community members were forced to flee Southeast Asia due to genocide and the US military agenda in the region. So once the Southeast Asian arrived in the US, we were resettled in a heavily disinvested neighborhoods like the Bronx, where our community members struggle to survive, right? And our community members face systemic poverty, lack of housing, systemic violence, poor educational options, and over-policing. So as a result, many of our youth became involved in the gangs and in order to find protections and support, which lead them to commit crimes ranging from less serious to more serious crimes. So this factor, combined with the law that further criminalized immigrants and poor community of colors, the 1996 immigration laws that made many of our community members deportable for past offenses. In a lot of cases, many have already served their time. They have rebuilt their lives, but are now also facing deportation, even though they fled Cambodia and Vietnam as a young children. So we had to strategize and address the issue, right? That is happening to our people. We have joined various coalitions, networks to fight and stop deportation in the Southeast Asian community. And this year is a really great year. We have launched 2 bills with 2 different coalitions. The first one is the Clemency Justice Act. So with the Clemency Justice Act, we would be able to bring a better transparencies and accountability to New York clemency process. And also, Mekong NYC is also part of the Southeast Asian Freedom Network that consists of 7 different organizations nationally. And together, we are fighting to end deportations. So back in September, we launched the SEER platform and CEDRA bill in DC. So Southeast Asian Relief and Responsibility Platform, also known as SEER, is the national policy platform that demands the US to take responsibility for violence it has inflicted on the Southeast Asian community. And this demand is rooted in the US military intervention in the Southeast Asia, again, and the failure of the refugee resettlement program. So SEER called for the US to address these harms, including ending detentions and deportations. Under SEER platform, there is the bill called the Southeast Asian Deportation Relief Act, in short for CEDRA, and its proposes to bring immediate relief to community members who live with day-to-day fears of imminent deportations. And this legislation proposed to limit DHS authority to deport Southeast Asian refugees, also permanently authorize employment eligibility, and also to end in-person ICE check-in and establish a 5 years gap between check-ins, right? Last but not least is the campaign. One of the campaign that we're working on is also the nail salon campaign. This is a very critical campaign as our community member families and friends who are the nail technicians And we believe that nail technicians deserve respect and their human rights as well, right? So the New York Nail Salon Workers' Bill of Rights was the first ever law specifically made for the industry that requires nail salons to meet certain safety requirements and to pay proper wages. So the bill was passed in 2015 after the nail salon workers who were organizing to improve working conditions, and they attracted the public attentions and they won. Right. So most immigrant women of colors who work with nail salon manicurists, pedicurists, they make up the great majority of the nail salon industry workforce in New York. And the most important part of working on this campaign is that we want to teach our nail technicians in both younger and older generations on how to maintain workplace goals that keep a firm improvement of its operations and also working conditions, budget, work procedure, and personnel manual, and also just overall safety wise. So these are the most important campaign that Mekong is taking the lead on or helping support to fight for the long run. And now I'm going to move on to our arts and culture program. Why are we doing arts and culture and what is the significance of it, right? So the arts and culture program are an integral part of Mekong vision for social justice. It is the time that the community members begin to tell their stories and make their voice heard. This will help ground our community vision for justice, also help us heal our communities and begin to build power. So going back to the history context for a little bit, many of the Southeast Asian came here as part of the 1980 Refugee Resettlement Act and settled in an underserved neighborhood that forced them to seek like a low-wage job or face unemployment, right? So majority of them were struggling with mental health, access to healthcare, and also social support with PTSD. So cultural identity and cultural home and traditions are very important to our people. And the fact that the culture tied them to their homeland is what grounds people and heals people, right? So we use arts and culture programming as a tool to bring community members into the community organizings and leadership development work. So developing a local leaderships and rebuilding our community cultural identity will lead to a long-term and deep changes. Under arts and culture program, we have done so many different projects that strengthen our intergenerational connection within the young generations and their parents and grandparents, right? We also want our people to understand that the impact of intergenerational trauma and how it will impact their young generation. And over the past year, Mekong NYC has worked on various projects that uplift and preserve the Southeast Asian culture and identity. So our intergenerational summer program run by the Youth Fellow, we do photo voice, we do cooking show, we do community gardening, silent theater, community screenings, and documentaries, and more, right? So these are pretty much all about storytelling and preserving our diaspora stories and experiences. So for example, the cooking show, we conducted filmings, we invited our members to our office and paired them with our youth fellow who were grandchildren or their children at that time. We have sets of questions to start the question with them while they cook their favorite home dish. The important thing to know about sharing stories and asking questions from our people is that every stories and experiences is very unique, but it's also very traumatizing to them, right? So we were and are very cautious and grateful to have their willingness to open up to us, but we have to be aware of how we're going to close that conversation afterward. We always tell everyone who wants to do a research on an interview with our members to make sure that they have a proper tool to close that triggering conversation. And please don't just take information from them and leave them with like the feelings of fears and traumatized. It's like you dig in a wound that hasn't healed properly and just left it there to become another scars. So our organization have been using somatic as a tool to our healing circle. After every tough conversation we have with our member, our staff, and our youth, we always conducted a breathing exercise or some sort of stress, anxiety, and anxiety relieving practices. Under arts and culture, we also have women's circle. So the idea of creating the Women's Circle is to create a safe space for our women and to be able to share their story, their experiences through various projects that are run by our youth fellow, right? The ladies group meet once a month to build relationship with one another, to learn about the work that we do, build a leadership development, to have tea time, to talk, to share, and also learn from one another and deepen the relationship within the two communities. Also, we have our beloved garden. As we talk about food insecurity and how it looks in our community, we thought of how we can stabilize our community needs in terms of food and produces. This is the community garden where our community comes together to plant crops and harvest it when it's ready together. This is one of many ways that we can help our community to stabilize and address food insecurity and to have access to the local community garden collectively, right? Mekong NYC is not just an organization, but we're also a home to the Southeast Asian communities as well. So we commit to provide the feeling of belongings and living in the Southeast Asian culture, even though we are here in this country. This is why cultural events such as Khmer New Year and community events and also traditional music classes such as Danchan class and the traditional dance class are the core to help us strive to keep our culture and identity alive and to make our members feel like they're close to home and make sure that the next generation understand the importance of preserving our own culture and identity. We're also collaborating with internationally with arts and culture organizations in Cambodia in different arts and healing projects as well. So the third among the three core work that Mekong NYC does is social services. As a social justice organization, we also focus on how people are living and surviving day to day, working on the front line and on the ground for 10 years. We still see our people struggle to survive physically, mentally, and financially, right? As much as resources provided by the government, there are also barriers that are created to block them from accessing these services. So direct service plays such a crucial role in the community organizing. Social service assistance programs are often not available in our languages that the Southeast Asian community are comfortably speaking with. So our role in the direct service team is to ensure that community member has access to the public benefits and social services, other resources, and to fill in the gaps that are missing by the city and the states. We provide case management, interpretation to the courthouse, doctor's appointments, housing assistance, immigration assistance, and other government benefit assistance. We also have staff that is patient navigator certified. They are able to help assist our member enrolling health insurance with in-house languages. So during the pandemic, we all knew that the chaos was unbearable for our community members as well as other community of colors. So our work has shifted drastically from serving community members in person to remotely. We have implemented the mutual aid program that consists of rapid response and also care package project to make sure that our people needs are met and their daily living is stable during those hard times, right? We also had the opportunity to provide community member community relief assistance fund to 300 families and about 6,000 care packages since 2020. And we will continue to distribute the care package twice a month until next year. We are able to maintain our great relationship with DOHMH, who grant us with the Health Box program every year. With Health Box coupons, our members are able to get fresh from the farm produces and grocery, and also through FPWA toy drive grants, we are able to conduct a toy drive event annually to give back to our young generations in the community during the holiday season. And we are so grateful for that. Direct services is also a pipeline where our community members come in for services and connect with our campaign. And we always say that the lived experience inform our campaign's work, right? This is also a great segue to the last piece that I want to address today as well.
Just a 2-minute warning, just to let you know. Okay.
Sure, thank you, Aurelis. this is real quick. Language justice is a very important piece that we continue to address in all kinds of spaces that we're part of, right? So as I mentioned earlier, our people are refugees and immigrants who came here and settled in the disinvested community, and access to education was not an option for them. So until this day, they are still struggling with the language barriers and literacy. So to address this as an organization, we are actually building base and community by providing direct services in Khmer and Vietnamese. We always make sure that all kind of marketing materials that we publish are translated into their native language and mail them out to our members or give them out at our events, and also care package day, or post them on our social media platform. We also use RoboTalker to send voice messages in preferred languages to community members automatically due to their literacy issues, as people don't really read and write in their native languages. So our phone line is also available in Khmer and Vietnamese and English, as well as our website. As we hit our 10 years milestone this year, we commit and continue to do the work on the ground to fight for social justice and gender justice for our community, and make sure that we are meeting our community members and providing the support that they need. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dita. Thank you for all of those incredible examples of how Mekong is really being community-centered. And so I'm sure a lot of people will have questions, follow-up questions for you. So really happy to have your contact information to share out afterwards, so you can let them know how they might be able to implement some of those programs.
Awesome.
All right. And so now we will move on to Marie Dunn from Graham. Let me see if I can. Yeah, there we go. And I will be spotlighting you now for everyone. Thank you for joining us, Marie.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be in community with you all today. My mother consistently showed compassion. She was warm and welcoming to everyone. And even when they offended her, she was slow to respond with anger. She was always curious about their bad behaviors towards her, and often expressed there was more to it than the eyes could see. And she was leaving them to God. To this day, my mother is still connecting folks to resources and diligently serving. As a child, I never understood, but the adult me reflecting is so proud of my mother. I felt compelled to provide context and highlight how I remain grounded in this work. Unconsciously, my mother prepared me to serve. Children live what they learn, and children learn what they live. This early learning was the first chapter of my social work career. Little did I know. Fast forward to 2011, when I entered the doors of Grime. I had no idea 11 years I would still be here. I got hooked to the Grime culture. They valued my opinion and my voice was welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. My pronouns are she and her. Now, allow me to give you all a glance of Grime. In 1806, 216 years ago, two ladies, Eliza Hamilton and Isabel Grime, started Grime with 6 children. Today, we serve 4,000 children and their families across 11 sites in Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Harlem. Grime strives to make a life-altering difference for children, youth, and families who are overcoming one of life's most difficult challenges and obstacles by helping them to build a strong foundation for life, a safe, loving, permanent family, the opportunity and preparation to thrive in school and the world. We serve our youths and families through our SLAM program, mental health clinic, health homes, family empowerment and support program, formerly the prevention program, and the Family Enrichment Center, among other programs. Grime is rooted in our 4 pillars and our guiding principles. We respect the inherent dignity and worth of all whom we work and believe in the strength of family in all forms. We are innovative, continually seeking ways to grow. We are committed to the continuous self-reflection and best practices with rewards and celebration for excellent performance. We thrive. Our kids and families come first. Our decisions and actions are always driven by our kids, the need for safety, family, education, and opportunity, and their capacity to succeed. We lead, all of us kids, families, foster parents, and staff lead by our words and action. We take ownership and are accountable for what we do. How do we do it? And the results. I borrowed this great quote from Samsha. A program, organization, or system that is trauma-informed realizes the widespread impact of trauma and understands potential paths for recovery, recognizes the signs and symptoms of trauma in clients, families, staff, and others involved with the system, and responds by fully integrating knowledge around trauma into policies, procedures, and practices, and seeks actively to resist re-traumatization. I think this quote really embodies the work we do here at GRIME. GRIME understands that a trauma-informed approach to our work is separate from trauma-specific provided in our mental health clinics. It is centered around our interventions, assessments, and our collaboration. During the first 2 weeks of employment with GRIME, new employees are required to complete a 2-week onboarding training. GRIME's internal learning, practice, and proficiency team ensure that every new hire engages in required training that is program-specific, whether facilitated in-house through ALICE or ACS workforce. I must underscore that some trainings such as GRIME's benefit package, solutions-based casework, motivational interview, trauma stewardship, and mindfulness practice is required by all staff. Onboarding continues after 2 weeks because the LPP team tracks every learning through ALICE and sends email prompts to complete relevant or refresher training as needed. Staff development is ongoing. GRIME invests in staff. Staff is so important. We allow our staff members to climb the career ladder internally. I am a proud example of a GRIME-grown leader. I started in 2011 as a foster care case planner, and in 2013, I was promoted to a foster care case planner supervisor. And in 2017, I transitioned into my new role as program director. GRIME is an innovative organization. We embrace our one GRIME philosophy and constantly elicit feedback from staff, youths, families, and foster parents that informs our practice. We assess by collecting relevant data through focus groups, surveys, mid-year and yearly staff performance evaluations. GRIME understands the importance of analyzing this data, which informs our practice. This awareness gave birth to the roundtables for staff, youths, foster, and biological parents. Roundtables at GRIME fosters inclusivity, empowers, facilitate honest and difficult conversations, and lend a voice to folks to share openly. Roundtables are used as a platform to evaluate the organization, to hear how we are doing from the folks we serve and the staff serving. Pre-COVID, roundtables were held quarterly. We pivoted during the pandemic and roundtables were held monthly. We're currently reassessing now that we have the hybrid schedule. What happens in the roundtables affects policies and procedures within the organization. I could go on and on and on if time permits me, but I will draw your attention to some of our organizational outcomes because GRIME listened. During one parent roundtable, parents expressed a need. They felt isolated. Attention was never given to the trauma they encountered when removal happens, and the domino effect that often follows. For example, loss of income, housing, the psychological stress. They felt no one cared and understood the shame and guilt they were grappling with. They felt judged. My apologies. Tell you about technology, right? They felt judged and alone. GRIME responded, and the Family Success Initiative was launched in 2013 to combat the social isolation parents voiced. FSI aims to provide a continuum of services to help parents with critical support to help them develop the skills, resilience, and support systems needed to ensure they can protect their families safely upon reunification. One of the core elements of the program is coaching and peer support, using evidence-based models such as Parenting Journey. Parenting Journey is a 12-week program based on the family system principle. People do not exist in isolation. The program does not teach parents how to parent. Instead, it allows them to focus on themselves first as a person and second as the caregiver. Parenting Journey provides psychologically safe spaces that supports the parents in reflecting on their childhood experiences and how it affects them today as individuals and as a parent. Parenting Journey further helps the parent to develop their strengths with heightened self-awareness. The program allows the parent to create nurturing environment while making self-care a priority. And I'll give you all an example of this process. Prior to starting this, our webinar, I received a text message from a parent who is in our current session number 5. Hey, so I have been having a hard time with my daughter. She's my middle child and the only girl. However, she has expressed that she feels like I don't love her. And now she cries always over everything she do. So I get angry and super stressed. I just don't know what to do. I tell her I love her, but she says, it's you. Always said something else, laugh out loud. She's only 5 years old, by the way. I responded, Happy Friday, Junior. My apologies for my delayed response. Can I call you about 12 noon when I'm finished? She responded, hey, yeah, sure. I responded with an emoji, perfect. That's just to show you what the process looks like. Network support groups are also another method used. One component of the network model is a 4-part meeting. It is easy to learn, and facilitation does not require an advanced degree or therapy license. It's a 4-part model. We start with self-affirmation. The meeting starts with each person introducing him or herself and sharing something positive with each person about themselves. Each participant takes a turn, then turns to the next person, ask, what do they feel good about? Part 2 is stress and concern. Participants are asked by the facilitator to share a stress or concern with the rest of the group. Individuals can choose whether to participate in this. After a stress and or concern is shared, other participants can share a same or similar experience, underscoring how they resolve the issue. It is important to use I statements. It is not about giving advice. And part 3, it's an action plan. Participants can create a SMART plan that is doable within a week. It is related to stress and shared, but does not have to be. Part 4 is silence. Participants sit in silence for 1 minute in order to process what was discussed in the group. After the 4 parts, there is an optional step, which is the clearing. Participants are able to express their final thoughts to the group members. This is done sequentially by saying, I am clear. Once everybody is clear, the meeting is over. I know we are strapped for time, so I'm going to wrap this up with just sharing that this intentional work we do in family success helps to advance GRIME's 2025 vision, the vision goal to help families in crisis heal. Furthermore, the family coaching model provides one-on-one coaching, mentoring, and advocacy. And the role of the family coach is significant because of the uniqueness of the position. The coach is a credible messenger because they were once a part of the system and they too had the experience of that trauma, which is amazing. And this incredible work, I'm here to share with you all that ACS in 2021, they decided to adopt this model, and it was approved after they did a pilot with Grime and our sister agency, Rising Grounds. Every foster care agency within New York State will now include a family advocate in their foster care unit. And this is exciting news for us. And my parting message encourages us to shift how we think about trauma. I challenge you all to understand what is causing a person to react the way they do. Please consider how we communicate with our peers and clients. What happened? Instead of, why are you acting this way? In closing, I'll end with this quote by Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said, forget what you did, but they will never forget the way you make them feel. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day on purpose.
Thank you so much, Marie. I'm really excited about all of these incredible service models, really excited about sharing out all the resources that you have shared with me so that participants on this call can really sit down with their teams and look through them and see, hey, what can we maybe start adapting in our programs and services? So thank you for sharing all of that. And now, last but not least, we will hear from William Weisberg from Forestdale, Inc. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Marlies. And on this panel that's provided so much rich information, I'm actually happy to be last and least. That's fine for me. I'm going to share some slides. I am Bill Weisberg from Forestdale. I'm going to say a few more words about that. Just get the slide deck up and running. But before I introduce myself and Forestdale a little bit more, I would like to invite the people who've joined us today to have a little bit of community participation. We've been talking all morning about community voice and choice, and I'd be interested for people to just put a phrase into the chat of what they think about when they think about community voice and choice. And again, I'm happy to be here. Thank you, FPWA. It's great to work with you. And thank you to the panelists for a rich presentation. I am Bill Weisberg. I'm the Executive Director at Forestdale. What does Forestdale do? Forestdale helps families in Queens and Brooklyn. Typically, after they've had a crisis, we work with them to provide resources that help them heal and stabilize and find a path to future growth. And so we see ourselves as a resource provider, partnering with families on this journey. And so now, again, what does voice and choice mean to you? Let's see what people are putting in the chat. Valuing opinions and direction that may be different than yours. That's a great description. Thank you. Sharing power. Thank you, Krista. And support and helpful help. So being supportive. That's kind of that partnership thing, growth and support, connection. So you've talked about that a little bit earlier in the presentation, but making that connection so that we're hearing that voice, we're making sure that families we work with and communities we serve have genuine input into the direction that's taken. Thank you. Let me just see, there's a new one, support and encouragement. These are all great responses, and I think get at the core of what this is. I'm going to talk about one of the things I'd like to emphasize in voice and choice. And I think of this as a pendulum, that back when I first started this work, service providers were dictating to communities and to families, this is what you have to do. And now we're talking about voice and choice, that the community and the client should be determining the direction they take And that's 100% right as far as I'm concerned. The part I hope we don't lose in that is one of the things clients are expecting of us is expertise. And I think of this as the analogy of when I go to a doctor, I want to be able to determine my treatment in the end. But I am coming to that doctor so she can tell me, this is what we're hearing in your heart or seeing in your circulation. We're pairing that doctor's expertise with our right to determine where we go. And I think of that because, again, with particularly low-income communities or families, we used to tell them what they had to do, which is wrong. It's just wrong. But as we move toward following their lead, we should be following it by joining it and pairing it with our expertise, because that's what's expected of us. And I'll tell you one of the experiences I had about this. I was doing some work for a UN agency in Mexico. And one of the things that I was trying to help them with was looking at models of entrepreneurship for women's cooperatives in small towns in Central America. And it was really interesting to me because as I studied it, when women in cooperatives in these small towns were asked, what would you like to do as an entrepreneurial effort if you got some sponsorship? The default was on local handicrafts. That just was kind of what people knew and the easiest thing to say. I was really intrigued by a project that was funded that brought in international consultants to work with women's cooperatives. And so they wouldn't just default to the first thing that the participants thought of. They actually would research and do market research on what might be profitable for them, what might they enjoy doing and have fun and learn a new experience. And so some of them set up ice cream factories. It was what was needed in the broader region. It could really make money. And the women had a great time setting up ice cream factories, and it was really profitable. And to me, that's the idea of pairing local determination with expert help to come up with the best product. And so how do we try to do that? Well, first I want to take another stop at why client and community voice. We kind of know it in our hearts that it's the right thing to do to forge that connection, that people should determine their own path. But there is also some research evidence that it works. So there's research evidence for things like school success, and Anthony Brick's work and his colleagues in Chicago looking at successful schools, that, you know, community partnership or student-led learning are 5 of the essential elements of school success, for example. Where there's research on human-centered design that has demonstrated the benefits of community input in things like health outreach campaigns. So I think as we talk about this, we feel that it's right, but we should also look back at the evidence, and there's growing evidence of the effectiveness and what circumstances make it effective. So as a service provider, what opportunities have we taken advantage of to incorporate client voice and choice? And I think several of the presenters have already mentioned this. Most obviously, each family should determine goals and services when they're working with the service providers. And so things like solution-based casework or motivational interviewing are just some examples of practices we've incorporated that say, okay, we're in partnership with the client, and the client is determining where it goes, is setting goals. And then again, we're using our facilitation and expertise to help that process along. What are services at Forestdale that have been influenced by community input and by clients? We have a mother's program. So at Forestdale, we have parenting programs, we have prevention, we have health services, we have foster care, we have youth development services. And in our mother's program, we found when we surveyed that 89% of them reported being in a violent relationship or having survived in intimate partner violence. And one of the things they said to us is, you're referring us out for these services, and we referred them out to some really good services, but they said, we want that here. We're a community of support. The mothers really hang out together, they get to know each other, there's peer support in the program, in our Strong Mothers program. And they said, we'd like those services here. So we appealed to several foundations, and they helped us start internal domestic intimate partner violence services, which include services for them, services for fathers, and also work with children on understanding the dynamics of intimate partner violence and how not to repeat those patterns. Housing, and more housing. When we talk to our families about what supports they need, housing is often the top of the list in New York City. Housing's so expensive, they're threatened with eviction and housing instability. So we've added housing specialists to work with parents and to work with young people. And I'll just note, many of you might be familiar with the Fair Futures campaign, this really successful campaign to have intensive and broad services like coaching for young people exiting foster care. And they have told us that the main thing they want help with is housing. And so a lot of this resources are now going into housing, including funds to help with first and last month's rent and help and apartment deposits and so forth. The pandemic really highlighted the need for material assistance, cash support. And so we were fortunate that our community donated $600,000 in cash that we distributed directly to families. A lot of the people we're working with are working 2 or 3 jobs, but are undocumented. So as they lost some of those jobs at the beginning of the pandemic, they had no way to support their families. And so this material assistance came in really handy. And has also led us to do a first pilot we know of with families in child welfare. So 18 families are in a guaranteed income program where they're getting $1,000 a month for 18 months. And we're really interested to learn from them. Did that help them access services they need? Did that reduce stress in the household? Did having that extra cash help them have more time with their children and help them with school? And it seems to be having that effect. I'm thinking of one family from our preventive service. Mom had left a violent relationship with her 13-year-old daughter. She was finishing a nursing degree. She used the guaranteed income to rent a room so that she could leave that violent relationship. But she was renting a room and sharing a bed with her 13-year-old daughter. And she used this extra money to rent a second bedroom for her daughter while she finished her nursing degree. So again, she's doing much better. And sometimes money is part of the answer for families that are struggling with income. And models like our trauma system, we were an early adopter of trauma systems therapy. It's trauma informed. It helps us look at the environment of teenagers who get dysregulated because of past trauma. And again, that's client-centered and really looks at the environment to make it more trauma sensitive. And the last example I'll give you is the Mockingbird family model. This we imported from Washington State, and it builds intentional communities of foster families to help each other. And they just help each other out during the week. They might help take each other's kids home from school when someone's working, or one of the young people needs a weekend respite, which is time apart, and will go to the Mockingbird Hub, which is a family they already know. So it creates a deeper sense of community. Okay, I'm going to ask you to put into the chat one more thing, which is in terms of processes for engaging community or client voice, and particularly processes that help community have input into your agency's decision-making. What are the good processes you've found that really help provide community input to the direction your agency takes? And I'm going to be looking in the chat for that. Some of the processes we've been working on have included focus groups with the community as we designed our preventive program 2 years ago. So focus groups, surveys, stakeholder interviews. Thank you, Laura Lee. Those are all really helpful. We have done some of those practices. We have a teen advisory group. They help determine where we go on college trips or what kinds of events we have. Over the summer, they wanted to go do whale watching, so they did that. And so obviously getting this kind of input, helping it to mold our services is really, really helpful. I remember designing a teen center in the Bronx, and I kept talking about, like, I wanted black light posters and you know, ping pong tables. And this was for young people who were exiting foster care, were involved in the justice system. And they sat down with me and they said, all due respect, Mr. Bill, we don't want ping pong tables. We want housing and jobs. We are facing a future as young people in New York City. That's the help we wanted. So we transitioned from the typical teen center kinds of things into really intensive coaching and housing support. And as someone was saying, just paying close attention to what people say as in individual cases and calls, really, really important. I asked for your input on this because we feel like if we were to get a grade for community and client voice and choice, we should probably get a C. We're improving our practices, which we have so much farther to go. Our race equity specialist is working on meaningful ways for community to have input into what the agency does, more meaningful input. We've just launched a family enrichment center in Southeast Queens. That's a model based on getting community. It's a community-led model, and we're really looking forward to and excited about that. And so these are ways we're trying to work on and improve our practice, but very interested in learning more from the panelists today and from your chat input and from partnering with all of you in the future. And yes, we do all have plenty of room for improvement, but I think we should name it, because sometimes for a presentation, you're tempted to say, yes, we do this, and yes, we do that, but we're still learning and growing, and we have so much more to do to make sure that we're centered around community input, common voice and choice. So thank you all. I will just end with a couple notes. And again, that is this call to not, I'm sometimes afraid when we follow the client's lead, that allows us to almost be lazy about providing our own resources and expertise. And I want to make sure we push ourselves to do that. I think of a therapist who once told me I was narcissistic. And I said, I really would like a second opinion. And she said, okay, you're ugly too. Sorry, that's an old Rodney Dangerfield joke. But with our ABC program, it's about attachment and following the child's lead and teaching parents and caregivers how to follow a child's lead. And as we do that, we really do want to make sure that we're bringing our own best game to the table, because that's what people make. Making the needs of individuals exposed by teaching the people to have a voice. That would include community leaders and even getting the New York Yankees to donate. Well, that's community input. We love community input when it comes in the form of money. But thank you all. So Larry's, I'll move it back to you.
Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you. So we do have time for one or two more questions that might not have been answered in the Q&A. And again, no worries. We will be sending out these questions and the panelists' answers in our follow-up email. So if anyone has any additional questions that they didn't get to pose, now is the time. Please put in the Q&A or in the chat. And I'm gonna give everyone like a flash round, 1 minute to say final words. And we'll start with you, Cynthia and Sarah. 1 minute, last words for our participants.
We know we take longer.
Yeah, I just think it's ironic that we weren't able to hear more questions and spoke for so long. We're very apologetic that we didn't get through our entire presentation, but we would be happy to have conversations via email or call us, and we can follow up with more information. And thank you to all the other presenters. What wonderful information for us to hear as well.
Yeah, thank you very much to all.
Great, thank you. Theda, any final closing remarks?
Thank you all. Thank you so much for having me here today and share space with amazing panelists today. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, I just want to emphasize this: as we hit our 10 years milestone this year, we commit and continue to do the work on the ground and fight for social justice and gender justice for our community. Please make sure everybody stays safe. And if you have any other questions or you want to connect offline, please reach out to my email. I will share with Laura Liz after the panel itself. Thank you.
So Calvin, I see a question about the Mockingbird model. Can it be done here in our community? Can you say more?
Sure. So anyone would be welcome to get in touch with me. I'll put my email in the chat as well. And I can, but just to talk a little bit more about it. So this was really a model of foster parent support. Being a foster parent can be really challenging these days, and we want to provide wonderful foster homes when children need it. This was developed in Washington State, and the Mockingbird family model takes 8 to 10 families and puts them together. Usually they're nearby in the same geographic community. And there's a hub leader. One of the homes is a hub home and has room for a couple children to do respite in their home. And they have monthly social activities. They go out and have pizza, they go play mini golf, they do things together. So the children and the families really get to know each other. So I'll tell a sad story, but when one of the Mockingbird parents died from COVID, one of the other cluster families took in a child that he had just adopted. And it was a family he already knew. So having that familiarity, building that sense of community can be really, really nice. And so this has been done with foster families, but I suppose someone can try it with other groups of community, because again, they help pick up kids from school for each other. They just become a little bit more of a support, which is nice. And that'll be my closing comment too.
Thank you so much. Marie, any closing comments?
Absolutely. Just for us, every day when we wake up to come into these spaces, it's to check ourselves before we interact and engage with the families and our peers that we work with. It is so important for us to listen and listen with intention. Our families are experts on themselves. And again, thank you, FPWA, for inviting me to be in this incredible space, and great work, everyone. Thank you all so much. And to the participants, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. So I did put in the chat our post survey. So please take those 2 minutes to complete our post survey. We really would appreciate it. And join us in December for the next foundational webinar focused on trauma responsive organizations. We'll be talking about how all of this work can take a serious toll on staff. So join us on December 8th to learn how you can actively promote staff well-being and improve your organization's response to the experience of compassion fatigue, burnout, and vicarious trauma. We'll be listening to Ivy Gamble-Cobb from the Family Center, Piper Anderson from Create Forward, and we'll be hearing from Sophia Hawley from Exhale to Inhale, a trauma-informed organization. So again, access to all of our previous sessions and registration for our December event are available on our website. The link has been put into the chat. Thank you so much for joining us, and we do hope that you will join us again in December. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care, everyone.
Hey, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much.